the headline of what you're about to do on Friday. If anybody isn't aware, you haven't opened a newspaper or looked on social media here in the UAE and further afield, on Friday you begin a small challenge. We're going to call it a small challenge, running 630 kilometers across 7 Emirates with a goal of 6 days. That's this Friday, Harry.
That is. We're definitely on the countdown.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a big round of applause in encouragement and motivation. Now, we're going to reverse that because we want you to motivate us through your inspiring story. And in order for us to understand the question, which is why? Why would you be doing this epic challenge? I want you to begin at the start, the inspiration for this particular challenge, but to take us back to you as an 18-year-old joining the Royal Marines. I believe the inspiration
Indeed, yeah.
for the character and the psychology may have started there.
Yeah, well, I didn't go to university. Instead, I joined the military. I joined the Royal Marines at 18. Went down to Commando Training Centre, Lympstone, and did the Commando course by the age of 19. And one of the amazing things about the Royal Marines is that they have these fantastic core values, and one of which, and my favourite, one that I've carried through life to date, is cheerfulness in adversity. And I love when you get into the dark moments of these challenges, to be able to kind of find those moments, that wry grin, that sense of humor that is able to bring you and whoever's with you forward. And it's a superpower, you see. Almost the darker and the harder it gets, the ability to then smile in the face of that is an incredible kind of powerful accelerator and takes you forward. But it was exposure, at a relatively young age of these kind of physical and mental challenges. And when I left the military 11 years later, like a lot of us veterans, I was kind of left with a bit of a vacuum. And when you're a soldier, being fit and training is a kind of regular thing. In fact, you're almost paid to do it. And that motivation is there as a group, but the organisation kind of is a big motivator. So when you leave, that all then has to come from within. And so, I remember not that long ago, 9 years ago, having to kind of source that motivation internally and to kind of redefine it and to come up with a whole bunch of new tricks of the trade on how to kind of make sure I did keep fit and keep healthy. And it's one of the things that I'm a big advocate now of is in helping people be active, is to give them those little tips that I've learned in the military, but more importantly, the ones I learned outside of the military to keep me going.
And we certainly want to unpack a lot of those tips that you've learned through hard experience that you can kind of like just crystallize for us here so we can take them away with us. But not to gloss over your experience, the military grounding, staying in the military and working across many different units. You were in the Royal Marines and then you went into...
I did, yeah. So I was a Royal Marine for 3 years and then I joined the British Army as an officer. Which is a completely different twist on things, because of course the focus there is leadership and bringing teams of soldiers with you on operations all around the world. A whole new string of challenges, which probably relate closer to some of the adventures I've been on since. I rode the Pacific 2 years ago with a team of 4. I was very much employing the skills and the practicable knowledge that I'd built up over the military to bring the team together to complete that challenge,
Absolutely.
which could only be done as a team.
And that's exactly why we want to understand the psychology of what makes you up, because you're absolutely right. You can see that through your life journey, that particular challenge of rowing across the Pacific Ocean. I mean, goodness me, how long did that take and how big was your team that you described leading there?
Yeah, so we rowed from California to Hawaii, which is a 4,800 kilometer row, which we did in 39 days. It was a 4-man crew, me and my brother, and 2 others.
Are they also of military background?
No, I was the only. It was my brother's idea, and so as part of the deal, he got to choose the crew, which was actually for me part of the excitement of the challenge, because picking 3 other soldiers would have been kind of easy because we'd all be on the same page. But in this case, I was having to bring other people with different ways of thinking and backgrounds together to complete it. And I can't take credit for the leadership of the crew. It was very much a team effort. But again, one is always learning about different dynamics and how to overcome the challenges of team bonding and bringing people together.
Clearly, you have a very growth mindset. You embrace challenges not only of the physical nature, but also of the leadership and teamwork nature as well. So that's really intriguing. As you say, if it had been people of a similar kind of career background to you that had a mindset from the military, it would have been perhaps a bit more of a straightforward task. But then taking on these non-soldiers and then probably applying your very military-esque training to the operation.
But not too much, because it can put people off. So, you have to be very diplomatic. And actually, one of the tips
tone down, I bet.
Well, exactly. Yes. And crews often fall out in a confined space for such a long time. Even your best friend starts getting on your nerve a little bit.
39 days. It almost sounds like a reality TV show, right?
Yes.
Throw them on.
There is a documentary,
film a bit and see who gets thrown overboard, who doesn't make it back in time.
And you get away with it as well.
Yeah, no, I bet. That's really intriguing. So fantastic. So the Pacific Ocean Challenge. And then was it during that time that you thought that, okay, this particular challenge is what you wanted to set your goal on?
Yeah.
How long ago did this come about?
So again, the rhythm of doing these challenges started after the army as a way to kind of continue that sort of expeditionary, adventurous nature. Yes, I did cook up this challenge actually whilst on the boat, in part because I really fancied going back into the world of doing something on my own. And the huge array of challenges that come along with doing things solo. As a team, the upside is that you've always got people around you to help lift you up. The downside is that they can always bring you down. So actually, I thought I've done a great team thing. Let's do something individual.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you about the actual challenge itself, but just to say to the audience, we really want to make this as interactive and dynamic as possible. So please have your questions ready for Harry. I will open them up in just a moment. But just to say, this challenge has been taken on board before. What have you learned from the previous people that have taken it on?
Sure. Yeah, it was set by actually a good friend of mine called Sean Burgess during COVID, who started the run on the UAE-Saudi Arabian border and went up through Abu Dhabi, up the E11 into Dubai, and into the Northern Emirates, across to Fujairah, in a very respectable time. He did it in 6 days and 22 hours. He's been fantastic and advised me every step of the way on this, as has the man that beat his record, Evren, who beat it a year later by a whole day. He was a real athlete and a fantastic runner, and there's all sorts of lessons about routine and management and how you feed yourself on the go. But I'm doing something a little bit different. So the Guinness World Record set route states that you have to start and finish at either end. So you can either start on the border of Saudi Arabia or in Fujairah. It hasn't been started yet in Fujairah, and the rationale for that is that I'm going to try and get the hill cracked on day one. Where Evren and Sean, when they did it, their last day was incredibly slow because they were dealing with 6 days of exhaustion and they were climbing this rather large hill over the mountains of Ras Al Khaimah. So the thought process is that perhaps if I can do that fresh, get a really good day done on day one and day two, and then I'll see how much space I've got to speed up or slow down for the very long and very flat journey, 4 days across Abu Dhabi, which is the bit that I'm most worried about.
Interesting. So it sounds like a no-brainer, that particular route. And you talk about the area that is flat, and this, of course, is a solo challenge. But of course, you were telling me off stage about the wonderful camaraderie and the team spirit that you have behind you in terms of your support people.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you to give us an insight into that and bring in the M42 link here. And then we will come to our audience for your questions. But just to hear about this, so tell me about the team effort behind you and the M42
big
link.
Time. Yeah, so this is a supported effort. Unlike the Pacific, which was completely unsupported, I have my trusty Pajero and my trusty Scamp, which is a little trailer behind me, which can sleep just me, one bed, and then I have a driver, and I have the physiotherapists provided by M42 and a medic from M42 who are a fundamental part of this. There are two crutches to this challenge, maybe three if you include fitness, but two on the journey itself. The first is that I eat like 10 men. You've got to get a lot of calories down your neck in order to crack 100 kilometers a day for 12 hours. And the second bit is around injury management, injury prevention. There is no way of completing this distance without hurting yourself. It is impossible. Even halfway through the first day, I will be feeling niggles and pains. And one of the parameters I've set with my team, and Nick Coates is my ops manager, is that he will help me make the call that if I'm causing the kind of lifelong damage to myself, that will be the only parameter of where we will pull the pin and stop. Provided that all the niggles and all the pains are short term, and that my physio and medic from M42 deem that to be the case, then we'll keep going. So every time I stop, I'm running in 3-hour legs. So every 3 hours, I'll be at a checkpoint. The physio will be bending me in all directions and loosening up those muscles. I'll have the medic looking after my feet and any other injuries that are coming about. I'll be eating about 1,000 calories on each stop, and then about 2,500 calories, up to 2,500 calories on each leg on the move. So that team is a fundamental part of getting this mission done. And also, on the why that you asked at the start, a big motivation behind this challenge is the awareness we're raising for those living with diabetes, which is a big global issue, and no more so than here in the UAE, where it affects 1 in 5 adults. And exercise and doing these kind of physical endeavors is a really, really good way of combating diabetes. There's a 60% reduction in the likelihood of getting diabetes if you are physically fit and you're not overweight. And so that's a big motivation here.
I think it's a really admirable mission, and it's certainly a very unique way to raise that level of awareness and applying a wider application to what you're learning to a community, which, as you say, is a very pressing issue. And naturally with M42, I'm sure they'll be monitoring you and collecting all that data, which will be really useful to analyze and actually tweak your running day to day. So that sounds fantastically interactive. On that interactive note, can we please get a mic to our audience member here who's sitting in the front row? He would like to ask a question, and fresh off him, we will make sure that we also get a mic to our other audience as well. So please indicate if you have questions amongst you, please.
Hello, Harry. Good evening. This is Imad. I have a couple of questions, basically. One is about your nutrition. What are the macros that you specifically choose for your diet? Specifically, you said you have 1,000 to 2,500 calories in your diet. So would it come from carbohydrates or proteins? That's one question. The second question is, what do you enjoy more, your solo trips or your team trips? Because as far as I understand, team trips have two things. Basically, they can motivate you and they can slow you down as well. So which one is what you enjoy? Normally, see, I correlate with you. I do 20 kilometers of walk every day. But previous to that, I used to do bodybuilding and muscle building. So my diet was a little different. The more I've started doing the cardio walks, I've started consuming more carbs specifically, which I don't like to, but unfortunately my body demands it. So how do you balance your diet for protein and carbohydrates? That's the first question, and then the team versus the solo journey.
Fantastic. Sure. So let's take that nutritional question first.
Yeah, sure. I'll caveat my answer by saying I'm not a nutrition expert, but I do have a system, and people that do these endurance events, there are lots of commonalities in what you can do to prepare. So on a daily basis, in my normal life training, not just specifically for this mission, I try and keep off too many processed foods as a rule of thumb. I eat quite a protein-heavy diet, but without supplements. So I don't take protein supplements. I'm not a vegetarian, so I eat a fair amount of meat. And the reason for that is as you're training, as you're tearing those muscles in the gym, and when you're running, it's obviously the proteins which are the kind of fuel for repair and for growth. As one gears up to the physical challenges themselves, whether it be a marathon or whether it be what I'm doing this week, I do switch slightly to energy source nutrition. So you've all heard of the carb load. People can overdo it. I haven't been carb loading for a week. You should start carb loading about 3 days out and not too much. And then they call it for endurance stuff. The best condition your body can be in is called being fat adapted. So it's a shift to fat as fuel. So that and there are various ways of triggering that mechanism. In your long training runs, you control your carb intake, so you don't do too much beforehand or during, and you wait until the kind of second half before you start supplementing with carbohydrates, as your body will naturally trigger into kind of a fat processing mechanism. And fat produces a lot more energy than carbs and slower into the body. So for these long kind of 3-4 plus hour efforts, you want to be burning as much fat as possible. And people there's a bit of a misnomer with fat. You associate fat with just being an overweight person. There's a huge amount of fat on our organs built in, and it's that fat which you're using, and it's very, very efficient. Now, when you're going for 12 hours a day, the fat won't convert into energy quick enough, and so you have to top it up with carbohydrates. And the body is incredibly effective at using both those energy systems simultaneously, but you have to be fat adapted first. Otherwise, if you're too heavy on carbs and you take fast-acting carbs, so high GI carbs, what can happen is you start yo-yoing. You kind of feel great, and then you trough. So you want to get that fat system working. You want to top it up with the carbs, and you don't want to take too many sugars, so that you're not going up and down. And being a soldier for a long time, we would practice we never had go gels or any of these kind of sugary athletes things around the army. We ate normal food, and so that's very much built into how we do these kind of how I do these endurance things. And I just caveat all that by saying 6 back-to-back 100-kilometer things. You kind of slightly forget a little bit about the quality of the food. Why? Because you simply just need calories. And I'm going to be burning about 8,000 a day. The body can quite efficiently process between 6,000 and 7,000. So you're always in deficit. When you're doing exercise, when you're rowing, especially when you're rowing on the water, but when you're running, funnily enough, you don't feel like eating at all. It's the last thing you want to do. It's completely counterintuitive. So you just have to keep just ramming anything you can. You have to be careful with proteins. If you're in a calorie deficit and you start eating too many protein-heavy foods, because protein isn't going to release the energy on the go, and you don't want your body using energy to process proteins. So on the run, I will reduce that, although fatty meats are good. So chorizo, sausages, pepperamis, there's a slow release energy that comes out of that. And then there's a repair function for when you're resting. So you just got to reduce the protein on the go. Sorry, that was a very detailed answer to things.
It's fascinating, the fascinating insight, and it shows that you have done your homework. I know you caveat it by saying you're not a nutritional expert, so certainly in terms of what you're doing, it shows that you have done your homework. And the gentleman asked the second part of the question, and thank you for your questions, was what do you prefer, reflecting on the solo and the team challenges? You've hinted at it already.
So upside of the team is that you can lift each other up, and completing something as a team, the camaraderie that comes with that, and the lifelong friendships, relationships you have. My brother and I are very close, but since rowing the Pacific, we're even closer. So you've got that. The downside, obviously, is that you can also bring each other down. And funnily enough, when someone's having a bad day, people find out about it. One of the tricks, someone very wise to me said before the row, he said, Harry, you're going to grate on each other. As much as I love you, you're also very annoying. So the piece of advice is said, of the unspoken word, ye are master. And what that means is, when you are feeling and you're at really low moment, whenever it is, during the day, you're running out of food, you're hurting, you're injured, you haven't had enough sleep, and you want to kill the person next to you, it's probably more of a reflection on you than it is him, even though he's been doing that funny clicky noise, or his food is smelly or whatever. It's probably you. So the rule was, if you felt like you wanted to slot the guy next to you, finish your shift, get in the cabin, sleep for 90 minutes, wake up, think about it, and if you still want to kill him, then think about what you're going to say and say it in a controlled manner. Right. So it's a really good team dynamic rule. You can employ it in your daily life, in your marriage, with your children, at work, and it works for me very well. So basically, keep your mouth shut and go to bed and talk about it the next day. So that's the downside, is that you have to deal with other people's emotions. Running solo, of course, you get that self-achievement. I did this. You get the benefit of solitude, can be a wonderful thing. The downside is that the buck stops with you, and you can stop at any moment. There's no reinforcement, there's no backup, there's no mate to lift you up. So you kind of get extra points for your ability to keep cracking on, which is what I'm going to have to be contending with on this one. So I like them both. There's a time for each one, and the next one I'll probably do a team thing as opposed to a solo thing.
I was just about to say, as well as giving us a wonderful insight, we appreciate your comprehensive answer there, Harry. We're getting nutritional advice, we're getting mindset growth advice, psychology advice, and a little bit of relationship advice there as well. Create some space between the reaction and the response. That might be the way to say it. But also, you hinted there, the next challenge begs the question, what is the next challenge? I feel like maybe it's there in the back of your mind. Can we get an exclusive? Some breaking news?
No, do you know what? I'm actually not going to give you an exclusive. I'll tell you why. Because the rowing was a 3-year venture that started during COVID. That was a lot of time away from my family. I have 3 children. Just time on the boat in training. Obviously, time at sea. So we were at sea for 6 weeks in Hawaii, not a particularly accessible place. This one is close to home, which is great. So I'm seeing my family on a daily basis, but it's that kind of mind share thing. You're finishing. I have a full-time job. I help tech companies with their expansion to the Middle East, and I come home, and I'm normally able to kind of stop and disconnect. But I come home, I'm planning this, I'm training a lot. I'm running 120 kilometers a week. That's 2 hours in the morning, sometimes an hour in the evening. You very quickly take away from family time. So to answer your question, I am not doing anything for at least another year, and it's time to focus on my wife and 3 children and do a bit of home time. But I've climbed a few mountains in my time. I've never climbed anything over 8,000 meters, so that's definitely kind of on the horizon.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's a pretty good hint. But I think we can give you probably a year off after this. I think that's well deserved, if not much longer. So we did get that little bit of a hint. Now, to end with, Harry, because we are concluding our session now, even though I feel like we could talk to you for many more hours, how does our audience follow you? Because, of course, this all kicks off on Friday. What's the best way to follow your journey? Not only to wish you the best, but also to plot it out ourselves. And are there certain points where you're going to be encouraging people to come and meet you on the journey, cheering you on? Yes.
As many people who can join as possible, whether that means you're kind of supporting or you're actually coming on the run. I'd love, I'm sure you've all seen the movie Forrest Gump. And I don't normally have facial hair, by the way. This is my ode to the great man himself. I have my Bubba Gump shrimp hat. So anyone that wants to run 1 kilometer or 100 kilometers with me, you can find me on Instagram. Send me a message on Instagram. I'll put you onto the WhatsApp group. You'll get your updates and you'll find out what route and the progress I'm making along the route. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But between 1 o'clock and 5 p.m., I'll be on Beach Road at the Spinneys before the canal, and we'll go over there. And then right after the canal is Mubadala Health Dubai clinic, and we'll be gathering there probably at about 4 or 5 p.m. So if you want to be there, and our sponsors will be looking after me and again stretching me in every direction, and that's kind of the last bit of human interaction I'm going to get before I hit the dark bit in going down through Abu Dhabi. So I'd love to see you there. But Instagram is the best way to find it. I'm HAH Amos 28.
There you go. And just to say on the Abu Dhabi point, because of course M42 is, the home is Abu Dhabi. I'd like to say it's the friendliest emirate, but I am biased living there. So, we want to make sure we get some people out to support you during the Abu Dhabi leg.
Yes, so for those that want to come a bit further afield, we're not going anywhere near the city. So if you want to come and join me for a few hours, pair up with someone, get in a car, drive onto the E11 until you find me, and then one of you can drive while one of you runs, and then you can swap over when you get bored. If you want to spend the night on the road with the support crew, make sure you bring a sleeping bag. You're more than welcome.
There you go. That's a challenge. And we're going to end on the note that you began with, Harry. That summarize that Royal Marine motto, because I think it's going to really keep us going and keep you going. It is?
Cheerfulness in adversity.
Cheerfulness in adversity.
Lean into those dark moments.
And we all wish you the very best with your challenge and say, Inshallah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause to Harry Amos. Thank you very much.